take this opportunity to greet you. May the peace of God be with you. And today I like to talk about one character in the Bible. And this character is about David. So today we are talking about David. We're going to learn how to live. We're going to learn how to live a good legacy. Let me take a look according to the Bible. And I like to start of where David was anointed. In chapter 16 of 1 Samuel, you're going to find David there is anointed. But before we reach there, I like to start with the chapter 13 from verse 14. But when Saul misbehaved, look at this. When Saul misbehaved, God rejected him. And this is a thing that I like to teach and to emphasize that whereby everywhere where there is promotion, there is demotion. Everywhere where there is promotion, there is rejection. Everywhere when somebody is going to agree with you, he will go to disagree with somebody. Look at here, there is a promotion and then we have demotion. In chapter 13 of 1 Samuel, let us start from verse 13 and 14. And God told Samuel, I have rejected Saul because of his behavior. He didn't obey me. So that I have rejected Saul. And I have done what? Verse 14 says that I have chosen David, a man after my heart. I have chosen David, a man who will going to do according to my will. So, take a look. God had rejected Saul and he had promoted David. Remember, David was a mere shepherd. According to the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 16, you're going to see how David was anointed by Samuel. Let us continue and then look how God talk about David. In chapter 13, also Act of Apostles, verse 22, God is giving a testimony about David. After he do what? After he rejected Saul, he give a testimony. He give an account. I have rejected Saul, but I have found David, son of Jesse, a man after my heart. And I am going to anoint him. Or in short, I will going to give him kingpin. And he will going to be the king over the people of Israel, all my people. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that God can give you account? And if He will going to give your account, what about your account? Is it a good account or bad testimony? David was reached a level whereby God had said that I have found a man after my heart. I have found a man who had pleased me. I have found a man who can obey me. So if you have any leadership, do it in a great way. Do it in a honest way. Let integrity follow you. Because God has many people, good people, people after his heart, that he can demote you and promote them. Let us continue and take a look about David. We say we are going to learn about David. In chapter 12 of 2 Samuel, when you start in verse 16, you're going to find that this is after David was taken the Uriah's wife. Remember how David took the Uriah's wife according to the chapter 11 of 2 Samuel. and he proceeded and killed Uriah in order to take Bathsheba as his wife. But God sent Nathan in chapter 12 to tell David he had done something that is forbidden. He had done his worst. When you start in the verse 16, you're going to see that, and David fasts and pray to God, because this time his son was healed. But God of heaven doesn't listen the prayer of David. Yes, David pray honestly, according to the book of 2 Samuel from verse 16. But God does not listen David. Why? Because David had gone against him. And this is the same David in chapter 13 of 1 Samuel, verse 14, that God is giving his testimony. I find David, son of Jesse, a man after my heart. I have rejected Saul, but I have done what? I have chosen David to become the leader of my people. Now God here is not listening the prayer of David. Why? Because of evil things that David does as far as Uriah's wife is concerned. What are we learning here? There is some prayers, some fasting that God will never draw attention. God needs obedience rather than sacrifice. And so this we can see in the book of 1 Samuel, that chapter 13, verse chapter 13, chapter 12. Samuel is telling Saul that God prefers obedience rather than sacrifice. David here had sacrificing himself in fasting, according to the book of 2 Samuel from verse 16. He prayed honestly. He fasted so that his child, the child with the wife of Uriah, Bathsheba, must survive. But because our God is a serious God, He's a God of no nonsense. Because God will never entertain nonsense. Does not matter who is doing this. Because our God is a serious Father. He did listen David because of evil things that was ahead of David. David fasted until his son was died. Then verse 18 says that in chapter 13 of 2 Samuel says that after the death of his son, David woke up and ate. But one thing I like to show you, David was fasting so that his son must survive. But because of evil things, disobedient, lack of obeying God, he refused to listen to him. Let us continue. In chapter 51, I like this. David is repenting about this sin. He repent honesty and ask God to create a good heart. Verse 10, verse 51, Psalms. So that he can accumulate everybody. He can please God and him alone. In that chapter, you're going to find David telling God, my sin, I can't hide my sin to you. And this is why you see that chapter 15 of Proverbs verse 3 says that, Good News Bible says that, God is watching us. Whether you do good or bad, God is watching us. And this is what you see David is telling God, you know everything about me. Even in my mother's womb, you already know me. Why? Where I can run and hide for your presence. Because you are everywhere. You are watching me, according to 139 Psalms. David here is repenting. And one thing I like David now know how to submit to God. Chapter 61, verse 5. David is telling God, I am acting as a foolish king. I was acting like a foolish king. So forgive me. Don't punish me in your anger. I know I am a sinner. So here I am to say, God, forgive me. And God forgive David. And God give any king or any president, he won him by using the name of David. Make sure you live a holy life like your ancestor David. Are we together? But we like to look many things about David. When David disobeyed God, God punished him openly. Why? Because our God is a God of no nonsense. But one thing I like about David, David was brave king. David was courageous king. David is not a coward man. So God now uses people who are not coward, people who can stand with his will. Are we together? Because the will of God will never please everybody, because he will come with the demotion and the promotion. Somebody must be rejected, then somebody must be brought or be exalted. Are we together? So when God like to use somebody, he seek David and he say, I have found somebody. Acts chapter 13. Paul is telling us that from 13 verse 23. But after God rejected Saul, he gave an account about David. He gave a testimony about David. I have found David, son of Jesse, a man after my heart. Are we together? What am I emphasizing, or what am I teaching? One thing you must understand is that our God is a serious God. Second thing, what is your relationship with God? What you must improve and aim higher and do your best is to make that sure that your relationship with God is good. Because David persuaded and come and become to know that what I need most is to have a good relationship with my God, nothing else. What I need is only to have a good relationship with my God. And this is why when you continue reading the book of Psalms, you're going to find, because of David persuading to do what? To please God, to do according to the will of God, God used David to show, to teach people. Because you can see chapter 71 of Psalms says that, Good News Bible, it says that, verse 7 says that, my life has been an example to many people because you are being strong defender. That is God. If God will going to be your strong defender, if you're going to rely to God and God alone, if you're going to worship God and Him alone, according to Joshua chapter 24 verse 14 and 15, He will going to use your name as a good example to many generations. Are we together? And I like to proceed a bit and show you something that I like David so much. David was a king, a good king. You can see how David was telling God, I have acted like a fool. According to 69 verse 5. David is a king, but he says that I have acted like a fool. So forgive me. Wash me. When you read the book of Psalms chapter 51, you're going to find David telling God, wash me and I will be clean. I will be white as snow because you are the one who cleanses in a good way. And I will do what? You know, in this chapter, David was trying to tell us, nothing will going to rely. But if we're going to rely with God, everything is possible. God will going to be with us. God will going to do great things. And God will going to be with us. David was living in the presence of God. If David was seeing everything in this world, David was seeing God. 127 Psalms. David is starting by saying, when you see a good building, he say that, and he learns God build. Those who build, they will going to build in vain. In short, this beautiful house, this house that attracts many, is not because of those who build, but is because of God who give wisdom for those who build. When you continue, David look at his God, 127 again, and look at them and say, and learns God, the God who guard, they will go to guard in vain. This is a level that David was rich. When he see everything, he's going to see God. Psalms 23 from verse 1. And God is my shepherd. And you can bear me witness, David was a good shepherd. And we know the story of David. According to the Psalm, first Psalms, Samuel from chapter 16. David was a great warrior, a good and great shepherd. He was tearing the bear, his bare hand. He was taking the sheep in the mouth of a lion and tear that lion. But look at here. When David considered for himself, because he know himself well, and he consider God, he see God as a great shepherd than him. Yes, we know about David, how was a great shepherd. But chapter 23 says that God, the Lord is my shepherd. I will never want. This is a great shepherd. And that is why you can see Jesus Christ in the book of John, chapter 10 from verse 11. I am a good shepherd. I'm not like a hired shepherd. This is a shepherd that David was talking about in chapter 23. Are we together? David was living in a life when he see everything, he see God. In chapter 20 of Psalms, verse 7, when David look his God with a good arm, with a good weapons, David look at them, many horses, chariot, and so forth. He look at them and he see God inside them, and he say that others trust in chariot or chariot, others trust in their horses, but we and this God and these horses that is surrounding me as a king, we trust in the Lord. Do you look at this level of David? And this is why God reached a point, verse 13, verse 22 of Act of Apostle. I have found David, a son of Jesse, a man after my heart. Are we together? God himself is giving account to David. I have found David, son of Jesse, a man after my own heart. And I will going to raise him. I will going to paramount him to lead my people. Because he's a man that will go to do according to my will. What am I trying to emphasize? All what am I trying to teach is that to live a life that God in heaven we will going to be happy of our life. He will going to put it in account and say, I find a man after my heart. I will go to anoint this man to broadcast the good news, great tidings about Jesus Christ. Are we together? The life of David is a good example to many people. It's a good example. It's a guide. It rebukes. It counsels. And it gives the king undivided. Why? 71 of Psalms, verse 7. My life was a good example to many. That is David. Are we together? Why? Because of the life that David was living. God himself was warning the kings. Live like David. Was warning the king Jeroboam. Live like David. Rehoboam. Live like David, your ancestor. Are we together? Why? Because of strategy. Because of relying. Because of trusting in the Lord. Are we together? We need people like David. We need people where God is searching somebody after his heart. Let him find you. Are we together? And find so and so, the man after my heart. The life of David is a good lesson to many people. Read about David, and you're going to find that how David usually to submit. And I've told you about Psalms 51. David was repenting about taking the wife of Uriah and killing Uriah. And you're going to see how David is submit, and God is saying, if it's to bless, I will going to bless you. Why? Because of your submission and your heart. Because I can see your heart is after me. David was an evangelist because he was a musician, according to Psalms. He brings many people to God, the Father. Why? Because the great desire of David is to bring people to the Lord. Are we together? David was living that, in a life that, even in every victory, David was having a knowledge that you obtain from the Lord. Psalms 35. Fight against who fight me, Lord. Are we together? David was undergoing great persecution, but he put his trust to the Lord, and David granted the victory. Romans chapter 5 verse 5. David was up in the hope to the Lord. And if I am going to place my hope to the Lord, everything will going to be possible. Will going to be possible, because not impossible things in front of God. Why? If you put your hope in the Lord, Paul told us in Romans 5:5, this hope will never disappoint. And this hope is Jesus Christ, that God had poured in us through the love of Jesus Christ. Are we together? In chapter 8, verse 15, Paul is telling us, and this is what David was trusting. David was not looking the suffering that is undergone, but he was looking the glory that is coming. And David gauged the persecution and see the glory greater than persecution. I have considering this suffering can be compared by the glory that God is going to reveal for us because of the love that he has for us. Are we together? Chapter 8 of Romans verse 28. Everything David he did, everything David he passed through, he understand that he will going to pass through that, but it's for his own good, because he loved God. 28 verse chapter 5 of Romans. And I know that everything happened for good for those who love God. And David was the man who loved God most. And he consulted God in each and everything. If he like to go to the war, he must consult God, because he knows that God is the source of victory. David put God as a first priority, and David put God as a final touches. If David like to go to the war, he must consult God and ask him, my God, allow me to go to that war? Are you going to give me victory? And he will go to listen God very well. And then he going to proceed to that war. Then he grant victory. In each and everything, afterward, David thanked the Lord. He take him as a final touches. This is the thing that I emphasize to you. Today we learn that we must put God as a first priority and also as the final touches. Let us consult God in each and everything we do. And if we go astray, let's tell God, forgive us. And let us submit to the Lord according to the act and the character traits of David, the king of Israel. My name is Teacher Greda. And I have told you, I'm not the teacher by profession, but by the will of God. May the peace of God be with you.